course, very, very popular amongst European players, especially through that region finals, coming to the fore really well. Leonardo rounding it out with the Landorus, Galarian Moltres, Regieleki, Grimmsnarl, and Spectrier. And the, little bit different over on Kevin's side. The Registeel once again and the Landorus, kind of a staple for a lot of trainers at this point, but rounding it out with Porygon 2, Torkoal, Venusaur, and Grimmsnarl.
Both of these teams just littered with top usage Pokemon here, and no surprise, I mean, we've seen just how strong this Landorus has been in this format and how it's been utilized by these trainers, not only inside of Dynamax, but also outside of the Intimidates, and being able to be paired up with something like that Registeel is just so strong, and with similar sort of ideas from these players, but a little bit of switch-ups. I mean, we see that Porygon 2, we see that Torkoal, we see that Venusaur. Be interesting to see how these players navigate this.
It's going to be a fantastic match. I think the best execution of the Landorus and Registeel combination is going to be what decides this match. Both trainers obviously very experienced, being able to put that in the limelight and say, well, I can get my Registeel set up before yours, then I can start causing problems, is going to be very, very important. So a lot going on. Of course, there's some really different options, I think, available on Kevin's side with that Torkoal and the Venusaur as well. Something you have to respect a little bit when you go into team preview. But the only way to see how they go around it is to be diving on into the game. So let's head into our first winners semi-final and see who will be securing a place in the winners finals. This is exactly where you want to be. You don't want to be dropping to that losers bracket and playing extra games.
I'm so excited to see how Kevin is going to be playing this. There's a couple of different modes to his team, and we have a little sneak peek of how he's going to be playing it because that Venusaur is coming out to play, led with the Grimmsnarl, facing down against a Grimmsnarl and Spectre on Leonardo's side.
Both trainers relying on that Grimmsnarl, seeing how important it can be to set up those screens, maybe try and cause some problems with the rest of its moveset, but being able to take hits a little bit better, really, really important for a lot of trainers coming into this, and that's why Grimmsnarl, as we saw at the top of the day, one of the most used Pokemon.
And right off of the bat, instead of reducing the damage, it's going to go for reducing the speed. Thunder Wave connecting with Kevin's Venusaur here, and Kevin just looking to slow Spectre on Leonardo's side, going for that taunt. And to slow down this Venusaur even more, Snarl coming out from the Spectre, getting that special attack drop is just slowly chipping down this Pokemon. And what I believe was the Sleep Powder, unable to connect.
Yeah, not getting to hit that really big on the Grimmsnarl. You want that to be slowed down. And this Venusaur kind of getting in a bit of trouble, getting slowed down, getting its special attack lowered as well. So both trainers really trying to carve open a position they feel more comfortable, maybe bringing in a Dynamax candidate, maybe throwing out some of those big attacks. Grimmsnarl with Thunder Wave can be so frustrating. So it's very hard to be playing around. And those screens now going up for the Grimmsnarl on Kevin's side. Knows, of course, that special attacks are going to be incoming because, you've obviously taunted that Spectre, so it has to start attacking.
Yeah, Leonardo going on the offensive, though. Shadow Ball into the Venusaur, followed up with a Spirit Break into Kevin's Grimmsnarl, but Kevin's Venusaur finally able to connect this time around. A little turn too late, but is able to put Leonardo's Grimmsnarl to bed.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to help it out, meaning that Leonardo's going to have to wait a little bit if he wants to set up the screens himself, so being very cautious there. And this Venusaur only just wanted to get that Sleep Powder down. Now the Sleep Powder's in, he wants to get out of there.
Porygon 2 coming out instead. I mean, after that Sleep Powder, Venusaur, it's not really doing too much. It already has a special attack drop, so just being able to being able to switch out is definitely good here. The Grimmsnarl gonna keep sleeping, but is going to take a Spirit Break from Kevin as he's looking to apply this pressure back.
Yeah, I mean, the switch into Porygon 2 there, really good for absorbing that Shadow Ball, obviously using the type chart to his advantage. I really like seeing switches like that are just so heads up. You knew that the Venusaur was going to be taking a good chunk of damage that turn, so you get a free switch into the Porygon, and now you're given a little bit of wiggle room. You're able to make sure your screens are still going up. The Grimmsnarl knows it's actually got a turn where it can land a Spirit Break in there as well, so very nicely done, I think, from Kevin to try and get some damage back as Leonardo's Grimmsnarl remains sleeping.
Yeah, giving all the opportunity for Kevin's Grimmsnarl to be putting on this pressure and is going to go for another taunt here into the Spectre, so unable to do anything, which means this Porygon 2 is free to do everything as we see that Trick Room being set.
Trick Room going up completely free of charge. I mean, no damage even coming back down over onto Kevin's side for getting that set up. Could be a bit of an indicator as to what's in the back, maybe, and how he's going to be able to try and play around that one. So a lot to think about, I think, for Leonardo, because you can't just let Kevin run away with a free Trick Room. You've got to be able to bring some kind of answer to it. Because if he switches in a Pokemon that can sweep through in the Trick Room, the game could very quickly get away from you.
Oh, and we've already seen that Venusaur, so with this Trick Room being set, I can only imagine that it is that Torkoal in the back, and Torkoal is something that loves the Trick Room, loves being able to go for those big eruptions, so it could definitely be a bit of a dangerous situation if it is indeed hiding in the back. And Leonardo's Grimmsnarl still just taking his snooze, not going to be doing anything, and it's just giving Kevin the opportunity to just be slowly applying these pressures, slowly apply this attack. We see another Spirit Break into the Spectre, and a Tri-Attack into the Grimmsnarl, really close to picking it up, but not quite.
And no knockouts yet. Both trainers desperately trying to find one of those. But this Grimmsnarl sleeping on Leonardo's side, I think, has been a massive problem. I mean, it's now down to 3 health. Desperately trying to wake up, throw down some of those screens, trying to help out for the future a little bit, and maybe knowing a little bit more about the team helps him choose a screen that he wants to set up. If he's only going to get one, it has to be very, very impactful. Does wake up and does get the light screen, knowing that there's special attackers coming. This could be massive.
Is definitely just in time there. Being able to get that setup is just so huge. Kevin just still applying this pressure onto the Spectre, going for yet another Spirit Break and Tri-Attack, finally cleaning up that Grimmsnarl, but at least the Grimmsnarl was able to do something before heading on out.
Yeah, I mean, it manages to get that down, and the Spectre kind of forced to fire back with these Shadow Balls. Not very effective, but that's the impact the Taunt has had. And Leonardo has some really good attackers in the back. Now we get to look at his team finally. He's been so set with this opening lead. You know, he doesn't want to show either of these until he absolutely has to, and being able to hold on to that, I think, has really put him in a good position to make a comeback. Because Kevin's already revealed 3 of his team, he's taking a good amount of damage, and may just be trying to say, well, you can have your Trick Room for a little bit, but I'll just wait on the field while you're not taking advantage of it that well with Porygon and, of course, the Grimmsnarl.
You know, this Grimmsnarl's not been applying, it's been slowly chipping away the Spectre, but it hasn't been applying the most pressure, and Porygon too. I mean, Tri-Attack can definitely be strong, but was just slowly chipping away at this Grimmsnarl, so not being able to capitalize off of the Trick Room while he has it. It's definitely going to be big here, and I mean, neither of Leonardo's back 2 Pokemon with that Landorus and the Moltres appreciate the Trick Room, but a couple turns of it have already passed, and he can just continue waiting it out. It just puts him in the driver's seat to put all that pressure back on.
Now, there's only this turn and the following turn left with Trick Room, so if you can find a little bit of wiggle room in there, maybe an answer to the Porygon as soon as that Trick Room has expired, then you'll be in a really good position to maybe sweep through the rest of the game with this Landorus-Moltres combination. Landorus isn't going to be the pick right now, though. Wants to get away from that a little bit. Not so keen on the position, even though it just switched in. And Kevin going for a Dynamax with none of his kind of big hitters on the field. It's the Dynamax Porygon 2. It's here, Sierra.
I love seeing a Max Porygon 2. Not something we get to really see too often. Normally it sits there with its attacks at the Trick Room and the Recover, but being able to see it in Dynamax is a treat. Maybe looking to go for a really impactful Hailstorm here, so nice switch on Leonardo's end. Grimmsnarl looking to just pick up some damage, and sure enough, that Hailstorm coming out, going to be hitting into the Moltres, but not really doing too much through that light screen.
There's the light screen in there. There was a couple snarls down on it earlier as well from that Spectria, so it's sort of not the most impactful, but at least Kevin's made a change up. He's gone and said, well, I'm not getting anything out of this Trick Room. I've got a couple more turns left, so you know what? I am going to go for it. I am going to Dynamax, and I'm just going to try and get as much damage down. But that one light screen that Leonardo got down has been so helpful, and this Moltres doing really well. The Spectria's item choice being pretty important here, as it's not taking that hail damage between turns, so it is sticking around and maybe just trying to find a little bit of wiggle room to get through. But this Porygon 2 is being asked to do a whole lot, even though it's not going to be the scariest thing after all of those drops and attacking into a light screen.
As much as I'd love to see that Max Porygon too, it's just unfortunately not doing too much. And this Moltres is just taking the opportunity to go for the Protect as well. I mean, at this point, you just have to be waiting out the Porygon 2's Max as it just tries to put on this pressure. And sure enough, Max Strike into the Protect, doing so little damage. It will get a speed drop on it, which, I mean, in Trick Room doesn't matter, but will be nice coming out of Trick Room. But the damage output is just so few, and the Spectre sticking around means that it's going to be able to go for that free Will-O-Wisp into Kevin's Grimmsnarl.
And I mean, now the Grimmsnarl set up both the screens. The Reflect went up earlier. We just saw the Light screen land as well. That burn is going to be impactful if it has to turn and look to try and, you know, take knockouts with the Spirit Break. So definitely being able to help there. The Trick Room has ended, and awkwardly, I think, for Kevin, the Porygon does not have access to Trick Room while it's Dynamax. So these 3 turns could put him behind the pace a little bit. As this Moltres, I mean, yeah, it's got a speed drop from that earlier use of the Max Strike, but it's still pretty pacey, and this Spectre is going to get to move fast as well. So a lot of good things going on for Leonardo coming out of this Trick Room. Does have the Moltres just on the field, definitely weighing up his options a little bit here. I saw him hovering that Dynamax. It could be a really good candidate for it, but does have to be respectful of the fact that that Light screen went up much later, so the Reflect will be ending, and maybe that's the key for the Landorus to come in and deal with that.
Opted not to max quite yet, instead just trying to weather the storm that the Porygon 2 and Grimmsnarl have out on the field, but in a good position to be doing so. It is just going to be targeting and slowly picking up this Grimmsnarl here, not wanting that to be applying any more pressure, but liked keeping it in throughout the duration of Trick Room. It meant Kevin didn't have a safe switch into something in the back like a potential Torkoal, and this is a Max Strike with no Protect, but that's still just doing so little damage.
Another Snarl weaved in by the Spectre, really helping out there, just making sure the damage has been so limited from these Dynamax turns, and the Berserk activated on the Galarian Moltres means it's definitely going to be more of a threat in the next couple of turns. Of course, it has to be a little bit careful. It has had a couple of speed drops. This Spectre has just sat on the field and caused problems, you know, lowering those special attacks. It's been on the field since the very first turn of the game as well, and even though it's been taunted a couple times, you know, even though the hail's been present, because of that safety goggles, it's just sat there on 2 health for a couple of turns now. So having a really big impact in this game, and Kevin does have to be careful, of course, what he brings. That Venusaur's already taken a good amount of damage, but then if you bring the Torkoal, you know, you're relying on it to be able to set up for the rest of the game. So no Trick Room on the board right now. Porygon will have access to it though, and I think Kevin has to make a choice. Do I want to try and play the fast mode and get the Venusaur back in, or do I go for the Trick Room even after I've got those speed drops down?
What hurts with the Venusaur, at least, it was also paralyzed earlier on, so not going to be going as fast as it maybe wants. So it's definitely an interesting one, and I mean, this Torkoal doesn't really appreciate being here not in Trick Room, so bit of a tricky situation. And the fact that he wasn't able to have too much impact with the Dynamax means that Leonard, yes, this Moltres isn't looking too healthy, but he has a completely healthy Landorus in the back and still has access to all 3 turns of his max.
It's going to be a lot to get through, and that paralysis is going to be very awkward on the Venusaur because it stops it being the big chlorophyll sweeper that it could potentially be, but it doesn't really, you know, with the chlorophyll active, means it can't really capitalize on the Trick Room either, so it's like stuck awkwardly in the middle of the speed tier, and it's not going to be able to take advantage of either of them. So looking at that and thinking more about that, Kevin probably having to lean into the Trick Room a little bit more. And Leonardo's answer to try and stop it, I mean, has always been pretty consistently making sure the taunts are sticking from this Spectria. So, you know, limited options when you are the Porygon, and those taunts are still in play.
Of course, but there's not going to be a Trick Room coming out. That Torkoal going for the Protect, but it's not going to be setting the Trick Room for its partner. So this Moltres having the opportunity to be firing off an attack into it, just slowly picking up that chip damage, and Porygon 2 just doing a little bit of chip in return to this Moltres.
Those special defense drops coming through as well, maybe trying to help out there. This Porygon's taunt did just end. He was provoked into not being able to Trick Room, and the Spectre once again is still on the field and able to cause problems with that. So Leonardo very cautiously manning his board, keeping the Porygon under the thumb with the taunts, and there it is, landing again. The Torkoal missing its Protect too.
And never giving this Porygon to an opportunity to be setting up, and Kevin, knowing this, just going for another attack. Missing that double Protect on the Torkoal though, had to go for it, but unfortunately not hitting it means this Torkoal is going to be going down to this max Airstream, and this Moltres is just putting up all of the damage here as it's going to be taking out another threat, forcing this Venusaur in, and this Porygon 2 is sitting on the field not looking so fantastic. Sure, health-wise it's fine, but it's gotten some special attack drops, it's taunted, like, it's not really applying any pressure.
It's not. It's really struggling. And, of course, that light screen helping out. Leonardo getting that key wake up on Grimmsnarl into just one of the screens. And it is a very, very tough choice when you're only able to get one. But when you look at your opponent's team, you think about what they have. You know, you got the Venusaur, a special attacker. You got the Porygon 2. If that goes after me, that's a special attacker. The Torkoal, a special attacker. You know, and these special attacks have just been getting worn down by consistent snarls from this Spectria, so really struggling to have an impact. And again, just look how much this Moltres is doing when it's able to just keep on going.
Sludge Bomb is going to connect, and it's going to at least pick up the poison onto the Moltres, but in return, not that one would have mattered, but is going to be picking up the KO and bringing it to Porygon 2 against the world, and at all of these drops, not really going to be able to do it.
It's just not able to get the damage down. I'd argue that the poison from the Sludge Bomb is going to do even more damage between turns and just causing problems there, I think, with that early paralysis actually being rather important and making sure that I think the Venusaur didn't completely run away with a potential endgame. Forcing some weird decisions. And this Porygon, yeah, it's very, very healthy. Yes, it's against two low health options here, but its special attack is absolutely minute, getting even lower with more snarls.
Definitely a way to be checking this Pokemon. It's doing no damage, and it's going to receive so much damage in return as a huge Fiery Wrath comes out. Doesn't quite pick up the KO, but bringing it down real close. It does at least give the opportunity for this Porygon 2 to be leveling out the Pokemon score a little more, but that is about it, as this Landorus is about to join the field, completely healthy and able to clean this up.
Yeah, Landorus isn't threatened at all. Probably not even threatened by the Ice Beam, and it's just going to be able to move first and pick up this Porygon. So this Spectria, I have to give it mad credit. It's been on the field since the very first turn of this pretty lengthy game, and is going to get knocked out for its troubles. A little bit disrespectful there by Leonardo, but just once the Landorus standing finally felled, and it, kind of saying, Kevin, you can't knock it out, I'll have to knock it out myself. So really well played game by Leonardo. I think Kevin did a lot of things very, very right. Was definitely trying to find those positions, but Dynamaxing the Porygon 2, it's either a huge success and you run away with the game, or it's just a little bit of a disaster. And after the light screen went up, after the snarls landed, I'd argue it was a bit of a disaster with just so much more value coming out of the max from Leonardo's side.
Yeah, it was definitely something that was cool to see, and definitely something that can be really impactful if given the right opportunity, but under a light screen and a special attack drop, it's not really going to be doing too much, as well as the fact that Leonardo making those switches, knowing that Moltres would take it a bit better. It's still super effective hit, but taking it a lot better than the Landorus would, and really just being able to wait out the Dynamax, wait out the Trick Room, and putting himself in a position to be taking the game back, and not really giving him a position at all to be capitalizing off of the Trick Room. The Porygon 2 wasn't doing too much, and there was no free switches, which meant anything that he would want to attack was to the back, like that Torkoal, had to risk coming in and getting attacked, or just having to wait for a KO that never happened.
And the taunt as well, really big there from the Spectria, just able to keep it, in the position you wanted, making it throw out very much weakened attacks after all the snarls into the light screen as well, causing a lot of problems there. And the Spectria, in my opinion, MVP, didn't deserve the fate it got at the end of game one, but it was there for the whole game. So fair enough, it controlled the game, and while it's a Pokemon a lot of people first looked at as an offensive threat, I love that people have tapped into it as a supportive Pokemon now.
Of course, but let's hop into this game 2 to see if this horse gets taken care of a little sooner this time around and what adjustments are going to be being made. So to start, Kevin, no change up with the lead, and there isn't going to be one from Leonardo either. We see both of those Grim Snarls. I mean, we just saw how big they were the first time around, being able to set those screens, and we see that ever so famous Spectre, because that's just such a good way to be starting off the battle.
Yeah, it's got to be one of the best kind of options there as well. And looking at all of those support moves, gives Leonardo a wide array of choices to how he wants to handle this one. I mean, he knew that the Grimmsnarl put down a lot of pressure with the Spirit Break, so why not just burn it? And right off the bat, Kevin making a change. It's not going to be Porygon 2 this time. He's going for something way more offensive when it comes to his Dynamax choice.
I mean, yeah, the Dynamax last time around didn't really have too much impact, so giving this Venusaur the opportunity to be going for something right off of the gate is definitely a really, really big change. It is going to get Thunder Waved and going to be slowed down here, but the Spectre unable to connect. So the Grimmsnarl from Kevin, able to get a Spirit Break back. Kevin just looking to put all of the offense here, try and take out this Grimmsnarl on Leonardo's end, and that is going to be followed up with this Vine Lash to take this Grimmsnarl out before it could really do too much with these screens.
Kevin terrified of that Grimmsnarl, especially the impact that the light screen had last game. The Spirit Break doing a lot more damage because there was no Will-O-Wisp connection from the Spectria, so the first time it's started to let Leonardo down a little bit there, not landing that attack, but happens to the best of us. And this now forces Leonardo, I think, to go on the offensive a little bit earlier. You know, you can't just let your Pokemon get taken out like that without a response. And now it's really on this Landorus to step up and show why it's one of the most commonly used in this format.
Now, both players playing this a lot faster this time around. I mean, it was forever until we saw KO last game, and already out of the gates, one of these Grimmsnarls is going to be taken down, and Leonardo going back with a response with this Max Landorus, which is going to be so strong, as well with the access to the Max Quake and the Spectre sitting healthy on the field with the Snarls. A real good way to be dealing with this Venusaur and just limiting the amount of damage it is able to deal out, even though Leonardo didn't get the opportunity to set a late screen.
Not going to be able to set up any screens. The Landorus getting taunted, though, so not able to maybe Sword Stance, trying to block that one there. But as you said, the Spectre going on the offensive a little bit with the Snarl, just trying to help out and make sure that it's not able to, you know, get huge damage given over. And there it is, the Max Quake to keep the special defense going up as well. Oof. That's a lot of damage. That Grimmsnarl wasn't throwing down any screens this time, and you can see how much quicker these games move without the light screen, without the reflect.
An eye for an eye, Grimmsnarl for a Grimmsnarl. Both trainers looking to just get out those pesky support Pokemon, and now with the special attack drop and the special defense boost that Leonardo has, this Vine Lash not really doing too much in terms of straight damage, instead having to rely on that residual damage a little bit.
The residual damage probably doing about as much as the actual G-Max Vine Lash itself. Here's the Porygon 2, so not really a good answer to it on the field right now, but it could just be getting caught with the same kind of thing, you know, just getting caught with the special attack drops, getting Landorus boosting up its special defense as well, and once again, you know, Leonardo just has to respect it for a turn, just knows that the taunt is something it needs to do. It does take away the recover option as well, which makes things even harder for a Porygon that's trying to stick around, and as long as you respect it, you keep it in line, then you should be able to see through the rest of this game. Once again, with that paralyzed Venusaur, not going to be able to take advantage of that Chlorophyll as well as it may like.
Oh, for sure. So just the way that Leonardo is able to respond to this Venusaur and the other threats that Kevin is throwing his way, really, really well done. And I mean, still another turn to max for this Venusaur, but it's not really doing too much. So able to just take this opportunity to go for that taunt into the Porygon 2, make sure no shenanigans are going to be happening, and another Max Quake coming out from this Landorus, going to be dealing a really good amount of damage to this Porygon 2, and like you said, with that taunt, there's going to be no access to recover, which means this Porygon 2 can get picked off next turn.
Yeah, it's going to be easy enough to knock out. Does get to fire back with an Ice Beam though, respecting the taunt, and there's the impact, I think, of those special defense boosts that Landorus has been stacking up. able to take 2 big attacks. I mean, a G-Max Vine Lash and a super effective Ice Beam as well, not causing it any problems, and it's just going to be able to cling on from the beating between turns. So between this turn and the next, it will of course get felled, but it's got one more turn of the Dynamax, so one more turn where it's accessing max moves, and it could just be, I think the Spectre is sat on the field. It's getting advantage of all of these special defense boosts as well, so that's going to be something to consider when it comes to trying to get knockouts.
Yeah, being able to get all of these boosts as well as the drops is just slowing Kevin down so much, especially in face of all of these special attackers. I mean, the Venusaur not being able to capitalize off of its max as much as it wanted to, and is now going to be taking a Shadow Ball as well. Spectre being able to deal out lot more damage as well as the drops. It's not something that Kevin wants to be seeing at this point, especially since this Landorus is going to be able to follow up with the KO on this Porygon 2. Not too much to stop it. Don't think there's a safe swap it in the back. I can only assume that it's going to be that Torkoal, and Leonard really just in the driver's seat and is going to be losing this Landorus, but not before having three really big turns of Dynamax.
Yeah, I mean, it took out the Porygon while it was taunted, didn't have to worry about a late game Trick Room. The Venusaur not able to make a move on this turn, so that paralysis finally coming good for the Leonardo, but the Landorus has done its work. It's done all it needs to do. The special defense drop from the Shadow Ball is certainly going to help out as well, and something like this Moltres could just come in and take complete advantage of it. Of course, the Venusaur's going to have access to Chlorophyll now, but it's Chlorophyll while paralyzed, so it kind of just balances out, and you've just got a normal speed Venusaur.
Definitely not something you want your Venusaur to be doing. One of the things it does so well is going so fast with those sleep powders, or being able to apply any pressure, and just showing how impactful, like, this Grimmsnarl went down before setting any sort of reflector light screens, but being able to go for that Thunder Wave, just proving impactful in so many different ways here. Inspector just going full out on the offense again, just looking to pick up the KO on the Venusaur, and sure enough is going to be getting it, bringing it down to just this one sad Torkoal against the world, and it has to be taking these 2 attacks from this Moltres as well, and that's a big hit.
Yeah, I mean, it's single target as well, and that means this Eruption is not going to be doing all that much. Yes, it's in the sun, but at half health, its power is significantly reduced. And after all those special defense boosts that Spectre got to take advantage of, it takes them very, very nicely as well. So it looks like Kevin knows what's coming.